We're back with Stephanie Dobson this week. It's another episode of Healthy, Thriving Family After Divorce. Stephanie is a lawyer and mediator here in Lloydminster at Hankin Divorce Law and Mediation. Stephanie, thanks for joining us once again this week.
Yeah, thanks for having me as usual, Stacey.
Well, we're going to be talking about grandparents this week, and that's not something normally you associate with divorce and separation, but we want to talk about grandparents' time with kids whose parents are going through separation and divorce. So let's start out by talking about how grandparents can continue to maintain a meaningful relationship with their grandchildren whose parents are going through separation and divorce.
Yeah, thanks, Stacey. I thought this would be an interesting sort of expansion of our theme of being, around parenting time and scheduling time. And, so often in a separation and divorce, the extended family gets a little bit forgotten about. And, because so much of the focus is on the parents and how they're going to move into two homes. When grandparents are looking at their adult child who's going through separation, one of the first things I recommend, of course, you're already supporting your adult child going through the divorce, but just make sure that you let your adult child know how important it is to have that meaningful time with your grandchildren. Now, naturally, what usually happens is when, say, your child is the a son, right? And so the dad in that case is going to be carving out their own time, or the mom will be carving out their own time. So often what happens is the grandparents will get kind of a chunk from what the parent already gets. But one of the things that you can do is to say, look, I'd like to carve out some of our own time. So let's call it grandparenting time. So it just adds a little bit of an extra layer. Now, one idea for grandparents could be to use what we call the right of first refusal as a way to expand their time. So sometimes what parents will do is they'll put a clause into their parenting agreement that says, in the event that dad, am not available during my parenting time, mom gets that first right to care for the children. What you could say is, if dad's not available, can the grandparents have the first opportunity, and then mom or the other parent gets the opportunity? So just finding little ways to carve out special time is really important.
Now, what about in a situation, Stephanie, where it's maybe not so amicable and the grandparents are cut off from the grandchildren? What can you do in that scenario?
Well, of course, the first thing that we hope is for people to kind of to talk it out and just to try to come up with some sort of resolution. But if that isn't possible, grandparents actually may have the right to apply to the court for some court-ordered grandchildren time. So the rules, of course, are different depending on whether you're Alberta versus Saskatchewan and Lloydminster. We're always thinking of both provinces, but sometimes grandparents will be automatically entitled to apply to the court, and sometimes they actually have to ask permission to apply to the court for that grandparenting time. But in the end, it's going to be the best interest of the children that's going to determine what the court's going to do. Now, one of the things to keep in mind is that when we're demanding time, so through a court application, it often results in that more strained relationship. And so, even if you do get court ordered time, we just have to be mindful that sometimes that more strained relationship can create an even more toxic environment for the kids.
Stephanie, you deal with mediation all the time. Is that an option for grandparents?
Mediation, as I describe it, is just a neutral professional mediator who's helping people to resolve stuff. So whether it's two parents resolving their parenting time issues or other divorce separation related issues, or two neighbors having a dispute, or grandparents wanting to meet with their grandchildren and have some time with their grandchildren. Absolutely. So is the short answer, right? And going back to the idea of, instead of demanding time through a court application, we're requesting it through talking it through. Sometimes you can't do that on your own, and you need to use that neutral person to help to bring resolution.
Now, what if it's the other side of things? What if it's the grandkids who are opposed to seeing their grandparents?
Well, I would say, again, going back to mediation, right? Some neutral person who might be able to help people to talk that through. So children can also attend mediation, and maybe that we need to find out a little bit more about what's going on with the grandchildren as to why that resistance. Maybe the resistance is from the parents. Maybe and sort of as an adjacent to what the parents are thinking, or maybe it's coming directly from them. So if we can just somehow use some ways to get those words out and find out what's going on underneath the surface, it can actually help to build the relationship. Now, of course, if the parents are on side and supportive of the grandparents' relationship with the grandchildren, then of course that's going to, go the great distance. And maybe the parents will be involved in the mediation too. So we got lots of people, grandparents, grandchildren, and parents. So, but we got
All
to
right.
get to the root of the issue.
Well, lots of options, Stephanie. Anyways, it's good to know that when it comes to grandparents, they do have some avenues with this. So thank you very much for joining me once again this week, and we will
Yeah.
talk to you again soon.
Okay. Thanks, Stacey.